So in today's Wall Street Journal is an article on voters loving policies that economists love to hate. Now, for me, the article underscores two things. Economists do not live in the real world, and no economist will ever be elected president of the United States, probably nowhere in the world for that matter. I'm going to bring in now Strategas Chairman and CEO Jason Trennert. Jason, nobody understands, balancing budgets and making ends meet more than households, right? So regular folks, right? So, for me, I'm like, give them a break because they want a break on some of the things that are proposed. So, we'll put up a table just to show just some of the things and how regular folks are just saying, hey, we love it. Eliminate taxes on tips. 79% of people say we love that idea. Only 10% of economists agree. Eliminate taxes on Social Security. 68% of people agree with that. 5% of economists agree with it. Impose a 20% tariff. Yeah. Half the country says, okay. So there's a massive disconnect there.
Yeah, well, and it reminds me, Ronald Reagan once said, all Republicans view every day as 4th of July and Democrats view every day as April 15th. Okay, and the reason why, and this is part of the reason why the tax code is 3.5 million words, right, because there is power and complexity if you're an economist. If you're an academic, you want the system to be complex because it benefits you. And in the old, we didn't have a income tax in the system until in this country until 1913, and it was one page. You could fill it out. Anybody could do it. Right. Now, this is part of the problem with creating such complexity is that you start to pit people against one another. And in my opinion, letting people keep more of their own money makes imminently more sense.
We're going to put up a chart of things that economists do like, though. But to that point, I always thought that the narrative that has evolved over time of like corporate, like tax cuts, for instance, that somehow it harms the government. Like, in other words, the notion is that whenever we go to work, we're working for the government. Whatever they allow us to keep is like, it's
some dispensation from your own earnings, or dispensation from government. And that's, of course, that's the opposite of the way the whole system was designed.
And then here are some of the things that economists do favor that you say, okay, well, not bad, but this also hurts maybe the economy in a sense that if you cap all out-of-pocket expenses, reverse the tax cuts, these sort of things. We're a capitalist society, right? And there's give and take, but we do want to generate real economic opportunity through capitalism.
Yeah, listen, I started my own company with my partners 18 years ago, and I can tell you the one underlying theme I've learned is that incentives work.
Right.
Okay, and free markets work better than decisions being made by small groups of people like the Federal Open Market Committee. Okay, so I'm very much in favor of letting the markets work as much as possible. A lot of these things here really they really kind of speak to this idea of price fixing, which does not work. It creates shortages, it creates inferior products. Right. It's not the way to go. We get better outcomes as an economy, all economies do, when you let the wisdom of independent, free people to make their own economic decisions.
On that note, you put out a great chart, the change in America's standard of living. So you compare the first 44 months of Trump versus the first 44 months of Harris-Biden, and there is a distinct difference here. What accounts for this?
Yeah, so we also have a thing here, Charles, called the Common Man CPI, which I was just telling you, I got very frustrated when economists, they exclude energy, food, and shelter, and then they call it core. And I'm like, well, eating and staying warm is pretty core to me.
Pretty core-ish, yeah.
I don't know. So we said, let's go the other way. Let's just include food, energy, shelter, children's clothing, utilities, and insurance. What this is showing you is that people's wages outpaced inflation, both on a CPI versus a common man CPI during the Trump years. Right. People's prices have exceeded their wages during the Biden-Harris years. So people got richer during the Trump years, and they got poorer. Their standard of living has deteriorated, especially for those who are very focused on just the essentials. The people that can't afford.
Ordinary Americans trying to make it day to day. I got less than a minute to go. I got to get your thoughts then on the Fed, right? Because you wrote recently, it's not time for a victory lap on inflation. Yeah. So it's not put to bed completely.
No, I think especially given the policies that we have in place, you're running deficits, I think as one of your prior guests said, we're running deficits about 7% of GDP. We've never done that when we weren't in recession or during a time of war. We're focused right now, at least, on decarbonization. which is expensive. We're focused, there's a deglobalization going on, which is expensive.
Right.
And then now we have 21 million new immigrants who are now going to be, if they're allowed to stay in the country, are now going to be consuming credit, other goods and services, which is going to bid up the price of goods and services for everyone else.
Right.
So in my opinion, these are policies that the structural nature of inflation is not, the victory has not been achieved. This is going to be something that we're all going to be dealing with, in my opinion, for quite some time. And I think the Fed, I think it's appropriate the Fed has cut, but I wouldn't have cut 50 basis points. I would be much more, you know, methodical
I think they
in
were
their
concerned
approach.
about it as well, but it feels like, you know what, Powell's in between a rock and a hard place right now.
Yeah, agreed.
Good
Agreed.
stuff.
All right,
Great
man.
seeing
Thanks a
you.
lot. I
All right.
appreciate it.